1347. Kaffa, at the gates of Europe. The Mongols are laying siege to the Genoese trading post on the Black Sea, but the horde is being gnawed by an invisible sickness, both insidious and deadly. Arriving from the borders of China, a terrible and extremely contagious disease is decimating the ranks of the fighters. The Mongol army is infested with the bubonic plague. The horde is rapidly in no state to fight, even less to take the city. So the Mongol chief orders plague-infected corpses to be catapulted over the walls. The rats, swarming in the nomad camp, invade the Genoese stronghold, carrying in their coats an army of fleas swollen with disease. The sickness penetrates the lower city, makes its way along the gutters, infiltrates the houses. In the city, the epidemic rages like a forest fire. To flee the infected air, many ships leave the harbor. In the fresh air, offshore, the crews believe that they are safe. This is when the first symptoms appear. Death is among the passengers. Sailing along the coast, the first ships reach Constantinople, laden with their deadly cargo. Very quickly, the first cases of plague appear in the 1,000-year-old city. According to witnesses, it can kill a person within an hour. Unaware of the danger, merchant ships leave the Bosphorus to sail the trade routes and carry the infection to all the major ports of the Mediterranean. Anatolia, the Balkans, the Aegean Sea, and then the whole of Greece are infected. At the end of September 1347, the plague-ridden Genoese ships arrive in Messina and contaminate Sicily. The plague passes from cargo to cargo, ship to ship, city to city. Genoa is ravaged, then Pisa, Venice, and Marseille. The epidemic becomes a pandemic. No wall can stop it. No army fight it. The pestilence devastates villages, travels up rivers, swarms at the roadsides. From Majorca, the plague spreads to Spain. It stinks of Tunis, strikes Crete, Cyprus, Egypt. Alexandria and Cairo are in turn affected, as are Syria, Accra, and Jerusalem. For their populations, the only chance of salvation is to flee. To flee as far as possible and never come back. Irresistibly, the contagion crosses French Provence, ravages Montpellier. Toulouse travels up the Rhone and infects Lyon. On August 20th, 1348, Paris is hit. All over, those infected are shut up. Whole neighborhoods are put under quarantine. The city gates are closed. Nothing can stem the lightning-fast hemorrhaging. Switzerland, the Holy Roman Empire, and the English kingdom are all eaten away by this incurable sickness. Soon the whole of Europe is infected. Humanity is engaged in a merciless battle against the bacterium. And it is losing it.
We have just reached a turning point. A turning point is a key event, a crossroads in our history where the world swings one way or the other. One way or another, the plague would have reached the West. But by infecting the defenders of Kaffa, the Mongols bypassed the classic methods of progression. The plague uses maritime trade to reach directly into the heart of Europe. Nobody has time to prepare for it. Without the siege of Kaffa, it might have taken years to reach Genoa, then in full expansion. The city would have had time to prepare, take measures for confinement. It would not have seen its people and its countryside ravaged by the disease. With its resources preserved, its shipyards could have continued production of its excellent ships. The native city of Christopher Columbus would almost certainly have engaged in major explorations. The New World, discovered by the Genoese well before the Spanish, would have been covered in Genoese trading posts. A formidable oceanic Latin trading empire. America would be speaking Italian.
25 million dead. The Black Death carries off 1/3 of Europe's population in 4 years. In some cities, the dead number over 1,000 per day. It manifests itself in 2 forms. Bubonic plague, whose first sign is ganglions, the buboes. Then come nervous and psychological disorders. A temperature as high as 42 degrees Celsius and generalized blood poisoning lead to the death of 2 out of 3 infected persons after a few days. Pneumonic plague, infected by drops of saliva, is much faster and can kill a person within a few hours. Chances of survival are 0. The sick person is condemned. In accordance with the theory of miasmas, it is believed that the disease is transmitted through the air, so they protect their faces when handling corpses or tending the sick. But nobody protects themselves from the real danger: direct physical contact with the bacterium and bites from the fleas carried by the rats. The pestilence wipes out whole families. Graveyards are saturated. Common graves overflow. Infected corpses pile up on the streets. Out of fear of contamination, authorities ban movement, introduce quarantines, wall up the contaminated, burn infected cargoes. People shut themselves up in their houses, abandon the dead, throw the agonized bodies into the desolate streets. Death rules. The hour is for survival. Priests and monks are directly hit. Pursuing their ideal of helping their neighbor, they are in the front line. Soon there is nobody left to administer the last rites to the dying. A real communal fear arises. They begin to talk of divine punishment, of apocalypse. Those who practice self-flagellation hold processions while whipping themselves to atone for the sins of man and obtain God's forgiveness. All across Europe, they look for scapegoats. Communities withdraw upon themselves. Everywhere they mistake the enemy. Nobody suspects the rodents. Death appears to strike blindly, with no distinction of age or sex. The natural order of things is turned completely upside down. Children die before their parents. The dying no longer receive the last rites. The whole social model is shaken. Traditional reference points disappear. Psychosis spreads at the same pace as the infection. Europe, subject to famine and stricken by the Black Death, is in its death throes. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the Black Death seems to disappear in 1352. People stop dying. The symptoms disappear. The plague bacillus failed to infect the entire population, often through lack of living hosts to contaminate. The nightmare is over, for the moment.